Shut up and sit down.
There, I've got both of the babies parked together now. The GR and the MR2. They look so good together. 22 years difference in age. Oh, hello, welcome to another Wale side-by-side video. We're with Project MR2 again tonight. And I'm changing the oil and the filter. Now I've got all the engine codes sorted out and we've got rid of the pre-cats, with the mixtures being way too rich. Some oil will have been contaminated by unburnt fuel. So now I'm happy the codes are gone. I haven't filmed this, but I have drained the oil. I've been under there, taken out the oil out of the oil pan. The oil filter's off at the moment. Let me see if I can get you a shot. You can see the oil filter's off and I'm just letting it drip at the moment. And then I'm going to spin a brand new oil filter on once I've dragged the oil pan out, and make sure the seal has stayed on the old oil filter, because I don't want the seal to be double stacked. And then I'm going to put back in it some fully synthetic 1040, and I know the book asks for 530, but with this being an older engine and nearly 130,000 miles, is it a 10 I'm putting in it? No, it's not. It's getting a fully synthetic 540. That's what I'm happy to run in it. I've got the right winter grade. It's just going to be a little bit thicker. It's not going to make any odds. It'll like it because, as I say, it's an older engine, so we'll go with that. And we're using, for an oil filter, ADT 32109. That's ADL Blueprint. These are really good quality components. What ADL do is they source original equipment. I have them repackaged in their own boxes, so that will be of the same specification that Toyota use in the factory. I've used these filters on Japanese cars for years and years and years. I remember when they first came out, I was in the motor trade and we were opening boxes up when we started stocking their stuff, and everything was from an OE Japanese manufacturer. The quality on the Japanese parts that they do is outstanding, and they're at a really good price. I know I can go to Toyota and buy that filter for about £10. I've checked the part number on the catalogue, that is correct, but this came with the car, so I'm going to use it. So I'm going to go spin that on in a sec, and then we'll put some oil in there. Whilst we're on the subject of oil filters, put in the comments, do you pre-fill your oil filters or do you put them on without any oil in there? I know I'm going to put oil on the O-ring so it doesn't snag, but do you put oil inside your oil filter, considering this filter goes on that way up, so there's oil in it the moment you start the engine? I'll tell you now, I will be pre-filling this oil filter before it goes on. If the oil filter went on in that rotation or that rotation, it would be going on dry. But being as it goes on from underneath and screws up, I'm filling it up. Let me know what you do in the comments. Right, my procedure is I fill the oil filter up until I can't get any more oil in it. Then I let it sit for about 5 minutes. What that does is let all the oil in the filter soak into the medium that does the filtering, so it's pre-wetted. Then I just tip the excess back into the oil container. And the reason why I do it, if you put a dry filter on and start the engine up, the engine has to then fill the oil filter up, pre-wet everything before it gets to the bearings. Now if the filter's already wet and got a bit of oil in it, it gives something for the oil pump to suck on initially, and the oil light doesn't stay on as long whilst it builds its oil pressure back up again. It's the only reason why I do it. Pre-soak the filter. Right, the oil filter's on, and the trick with these is to spin them on by hand until they just seat, and then give them about 3/4 of a turn. You don't need any tools to put them on, just put them on by hand. Otherwise, when you come to take them off, you're not going to remove them, they will be too tight. So put them on by hand, seat them, and about 3/4 of a turn, that's all it needs. Right, we've got the sun plug in, we've got the oil filter on, dipstick's out, keys are out the car, so now we need to put some oil back in her. Access isn't very good on these MR2s. So I'm going to have to be very careful not to spill any. And it takes 3.9 litres when you do an oil change. So that's the oil funnel setup. Dipsticks out, filler caps on the bench. Let's go and get some oil. Whenever you're doing an oil change, always make sure you've got some gloves, because you don't know what contaminants are in that oil and you don't want it on your hands. I'll put about 2 litres in, and then I'm going back underneath just to make sure the sump plug's not leaking. I have put a new crush washer on the sump plug. I do that every time I do an oil change. So to use aluminium crush washers, I always use copper. About 1.5 litres left to put in. Let me quickly go and check for leaks. No, we're dry under there. A little bit more. It should leave me with about a litre. Right, I'll check the dipstick now. Push the dipstick in on an MR2 until it goes in no further. I'm about where I need to be. So let's put the filler cap back on. And start her up. Let's see how long it takes for the oil light to go out. There's the key. Take her out of gear, handbrake on. Probably see the oil light, tops up. Whoops, that was me. That didn't take very long to go out. I'm just going to let her run for about half a minute, turn her off, let it settle and check the oil level. So that'll do. Quick look underneath for leaks. Some plugs dry, nothing leaking. Caps on. We just sit and wait for it to settle now. I'll check the dipstick in a minute. If it needs any more, I'll put some in. If not, that's an oil change on your MO2. I have had to put another ½ a litre in, and I'm just waiting for that to settle now before I check the dipstick again. These things will actually run with a little bit too much oil in them, so if you actually just go over the full mark a little bit, it doesn't matter, because the bottom of the crank is about 2 inches away from the oil level in the sump when the engine is full. So you can probably get an extra litre in. You could probably put a whole 5 litres in one of these and not worry about the crank flipping through the oil, because there's a massive gap, because the sumps are really deep on them. There, I've got both of the babies parked together now. The GR and the MR2. They look so good together. 22 years difference in age.